Good morning students. Today we will discuss the ciliary ganglion. This ciliary ganglion is the peripheral parasympathetic ganglion. We have already discussed the pterygopalatine ganglion. Now today we will discuss the ciliary ganglion. Now this peripheral parasympathetic ganglion is lying between the optic nerve and lateral rectus muscle. So this is the location of this, and this ganglion is hanging along with the nasociliary nerve. So in another word we can say that topographically or anatomically this ganglion is related with which nerve? That is fifth nerve, that is ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve. So topographically it is related with fifth nerve. Which branch? That is nasociliary branch of ophthalmic division of trigeminal nerve. So this is the link. So topographically this ganglion is hanging, or it is related with the fifth nerve. Which part of the fifth nerve? Nasociliary branch of ophthalmic division of trigeminal nerve. Now functionally this ganglion is carrying the fibers of third nerve, that is oculomotor nerve. Now what kind of fibers they are present in this ganglion? That is general visceral efferent. So what are those? So it has three types of roots, that is parasympathetic. As the name is indicating that it is the peripheral parasympathetic ganglion. So it has parasympathetic root. Now the parasympathetic root or motor root fibers, they start from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus of the midbrain. Westphal nucleus present in the midbrain. This is the parasympathetic nucleus of third nerve. So I have already discussed these two nuclei, that is motor nucleus and parasympathetic nucleus of third nerve, in my oculomotor nerve class. Now parasympathetic fibers, they are arising from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus present in the midbrain. So from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, the fiber they run along with the third nerve. So third nerve is carrying the fibers. So the further division of the third nerve, we know that is at the apex of the cavernous sinus. This nerve, it divides into two rami, that is superior ramus and inferior ramus. Now this nerve, it enters into the inferior ramus of oculomotor nerve. Then it enters to the nerve to inferior oblique. So from the inferior ramus, one nerve is arising which is going to supply the nerve to inferior oblique. From this nerve to inferior oblique, it becomes the parasympathetic root for the ciliary ganglion. So this is ciliary ganglion. So I repeat, parasympathetic root is basically nerve to inferior oblique, which is a branch of inferior division of oculomotor nerve, but carrying what kind of fibers? It is carrying the parasympathetic fibers from the Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is lying in the midbrain. Now as this is peripheral parasympathetic ganglion, the fibers are relayed over here, and after this you can see this is the ganglion. So the short ciliary nerves, they start from this. Now the fibers, they pass through the short ciliary nerve to supply these structure, that is sphincter pupillae and ciliaris muscle. So this is the pathway for the parasympathetic root of the ciliary ganglion. Now next root which is attached to the ciliary ganglion is the sympathetic root. So sympathetic root, in case of parasympathetic, first I would like to tell you that once the fiber, they are running along with the nerve to inferior oblique, these are preganglionic fibers. So the relay is happening in the ciliary ganglion. After this, the fibers are called as postganglionic fibers. So these fibers, they supply these two muscles, that is sphincter pupillae and ciliaris muscle. Now sympathetic root fibers, these are the basically postganglionic fibers which are just starting from the superior cervical ganglion. So postganglionic fibers, they start from this. So these are postganglionic fibers. They start from this. They just form a plexus around the internal carotid artery. Then they form, that plexus is running along with the ophthalmic artery, which is a branch of internal carotid artery. So it is running along with that. The fibers then enter the nasociliary nerve. So again, this diagram is shown in this picture too. So the fibers, they are going to the nasociliary nerve and they enter through the ciliary ganglion and through the short ciliary nerve. You can see this pathway. In the ganglion, the fibers are not relayed, they pass as such. They are not relayed, sympathetic fibers. These are already postganglionic fibers. The relay of these fibers, it has already been occurred at what level? That is the superior cervical ganglion. So these fibers, they pass through the ciliary ganglion and they pass through the short ciliary nerve to supply the blood vessels of eyeball. Sometimes the fibers, they are going to supply the dilator pupillae too. So otherwise, another alternative route for the dilator pupillae is the fibers sometimes they pass through this nasociliary nerve, through the long ciliary nerve they reach the dilator pupillae. So this is the another pathway. But sympathetic fibers, they are meant for the blood vessels of the eyeball and the sometime fibers to the dilator pupillae. Another alternative route is the fibers, they enter the nasociliary nerve. They are, instead of passing through the ganglion, the fiber, they are going through the long ciliary nerve to reach the dilator pupillae. So this is another pathway. Now in this case, you can see the fibers, they pass unrelayed and they just pass through the ciliary ganglion to supply this structure. Now third route of the ciliary ganglion is the sensory route. Now sensory route is carrying the fiber from the cornea, iris, choroid. From this, the fibers, they enter through this. They pass through the ciliary ganglion and they are entering into which part? That is the nasociliary nerve. So through the short ciliary nerve, the fibers, they are passing from the cornea, iris and choroid. The fibers, they pass through, this is one route of this. So they are passing through it. So they enter into nasociliary, then they go to the higher center. So this is the pathway for the sensory fibers, which is going to the higher center. Ultimately, it is entering into nasociliary. So our concern is about ciliary ganglion. The alternative routes are there, but our concern is about the ciliary ganglion, which has three routes, that is parasympathetic, sympathetic and sensory. Parasympathetic, I told you, the fibers, they are basically the arising from the parasympathetic nucleus of third nerve. What is the name of that nucleus? Edinger-Westphal nucleus, which is like in the midbrain. The fibers, they pass through the, reaching to the nerve to inferior oblique. So how it is reaching? I told you that is, they're running along with third nerve, they're passing to the inferior branch of the third nerve. Then out of this, the nerve fibers which are going to the inferior oblique, they are carrying the parasympathetic fibers. They are relayed and they supply these two muscles. So sympathetic is meant for the blood vessels of the eyeball and dilator pupillae sometimes, and sensory fibers are carrying the general sensation fibers from the cornea, iris and choroid to the higher center, and ultimately they enter the short ciliary nerve, ciliary ganglion, and they go to the higher center. So this is all about the ciliary ganglion. If you have any doubt, you can write in the comment box. Thank you very much.